Recap show here on Monday afternoon. Could be Monday morning, depending on where you are located within the U.S. or around the world. But I am your host, Ian O'Connor, Senior Data Analyst here at Football Outsiders. Joining me, as always, on Monday afternoon, is Mike Tanier, Senior Analyst for Football Outsiders. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. You seem a little mixed up whether it's Monday or afternoon. Could it have been the 15 hours of football that we all ingested yesterday? Got you a little messed
Absolutely, yeah. And it's the mornings go by so fast for us on Monday, so it still feels like morning. And here we are, 1 o'clock here where we are. But getting started, before we get started, I just want to remind you about the great promo that we have going on with Underdog Fantasy. You can play on Underdog Fantasy with us, and you can double your first deposit up to $100 using promo code OUTSIDERS. And you may know them as big in best ball. Even with the NFL best ball season over the season-long best ball, they do still have other user-friendly game formats to spice up all the NFL action. They've got a thing called Battle Royale, which is a 6-round best ball style draft with simpler chances to win than you have in your traditional daily fantasy sites. Or you can try their pick'em games where you can wager on players' chances to go higher or lower than their projected stat lines. We've done really well at those the last couple of Mondays, so we're going to get to that a little bit sooner than usual after we get through some of the big news of the day. And you can do that prop betting even in states where your traditional prop betting currently is not available. Now, Underdog is the fastest growing fantasy site around, so join us and join the fun over at UnderdogFantasy.com or download Underdog in the App Store. Use promo code OUTSIDERS to double your first deposit up to $100. Again, that's a free $100 using promo code OUTSIDERS. So I know we had kind of our big lead leading in, but I think some news just broke. I told you when to get to briefly Javonte Williams, running back for the Broncos. Big injury yesterday. There really wasn't any optimism around that. From what I heard in comments after the game, it didn't come out that he tore his ACL per Tom Pelissero. So that's a big loss for the Broncos, who really had been kind of dominating that backfield. That weren't sure what the split was going to be. It seemed like was taking on a lot more. We're going to get to the Broncos as a team, but just, I guess, anything you want to add on that? Again, just a big loss for a young star that people have really, especially fantasy-wise, that's a big loss.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'll leave the fantasy element to you. In the Broncos situation yesterday, all of a sudden their offense became sort of a 3-and-out machine. Mm-hmm. The moment Javonte Williams was gone. Well, he's a great tackle breaker. He makes guys miss. He creates a ability to stay in front of the sticks that the Broncos desperately needed. He was out. It took him until the fourth quarter to readjust. It's another big blow for an offense that's not playing well. Lost Tim Patrick. It's kind of losing its bread and butter guys at a time when they really need to be trying to turn things around.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll get to them. The big news, though, had some big wins yesterday for some Super Bowl contenders. The Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs all won, some in convincing fashion, others comeback fashion. Which of these are you riding with right now as kind of your favorite moving on through 4 weeks of the season and as we go into the rest of the season?
Well, folks may be able to see Reggie White looking over my shoulder. I don't know how it's cropped. May be able to see my Lane Johnson signed Bud Light cans, and I might be able to see an Eagles cup over my head. So naturally, I'm riding with the Buffalo Bills. Okay. This is a team that I think would have been 4-0 in a variety of other circumstances, starting with a really epic injury rash in week 3, followed by hitting a very hot Dolphins team, followed by a very hot day, et cetera, et cetera. A team that could very well be 4-0 right now. Got a peek at the DVOA, and folks can check out the DVOA right now. There's a sneak preview of the pre-Monday Night Football on the site, and the Bills remain number 1. The Eagles are rising to number 2, but in so many statistical categories across the board, Bills are still the dominant team in the NFL, and they were going into the season, and I have to respect that. What about you?
Yeah, I like Buffalo as well. I think they're just overall – it's close for me, though, between them and Philly. So, we know Buffalo bounced back. They were down 20-3 and then gave up 0 points after the 3:39 mark of the second quarter. Ended up 8th overall in DVOA for the week. The offense was really only slightly above average. Defense was 6th. You said they're still the top team in DVOA, that sneak preview. For those of you watching, if you want to get access to all of the data and statistics on Monday, instead of waiting until Tuesday, you can do that with an FO Plus subscription. You can sign up for that at footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. But yeah, the Buffalo's still top team. The Eagles were also in a hole early, 14-0. Ended up with the best DVOA in week 4, 30 points higher than the next closest team. And they had the best defensive performance, nearly double the next closest. We saw all that rain up there in Philly. It was a rough game, but really they got in the hole and then they just kind of turned it on after that. and looked really good given the elements. And as I said, the numbers, they were the best team of the week. The Chiefs dominated the Bucs really from start to finish last night. That offense looked very good. Third highest offensive DVOA of the week. Surprisingly, you want to take I know you looked at it, so you probably saw who was number 2 in offense this week. Did you see that?
Was it the Seahawks?
No, it was Tampa Bay. Surprisingly, had the second best DVOA. Maybe not surprised. They put up points, but as kind of one-sided as that game was, it ended up only being a 10-point game, and they kind of had a couple touchdowns before letting it really get out of hand with Mike Evans there at the end of the half. But the defense on the other side, though, was not very good in terms of DVOA. As we say, if Tampa Bay's got the highest offense, second highest Kansas City defense, probably very good. Second worst, ahead of only Detroit. Gave up 4 touchdowns. They did get a couple fumble recoveries. They're just above average on the season now, which is still better than what we projected them defensive-wise. It's hard not to trust Mahomes, but I think the Eagles and Bills both are kind of ahead of the Chiefs right now, even with last night's performance. The defenses are just very good to pair with those offenses. I would probably give the slight edge to Philly just because there's not as much maybe not in a head-to-head, but there's not as much competition in the NFC like we talked about last week. So I think they've got a little better shot there. But, yeah, it's close. I would love to – I don't think they play this year, the Eagles and Bills, but would love to see them in the regular season because there's no guarantee they're going to meet in the Super Bowl.
Right. They do not play each other. We do have in 2 weeks a Bills-Chiefs game coming up. But I'm just trying to look up real quickly the team futures here to see where the Eagles are in terms of conference winner. Plus 300 Eagles to win the NFC. And that speaks to the lack of competition that you're talking about. Bills right now are plus 200 to win the AFC. Chiefs plus 350 to win the AFC. So if I'm looking for value, I'd probably take the Eagles plus 300 in a bet rather than the Bills plus 200 because there's simply more meat on the bone. And
that's interesting too because Buffalo has better odds and they're in a tougher conference, being plus 200 versus plus 300. So that just goes to show how much faith people have in the Bills come out of the AFC.
And Aaron and I joke about this on the Thursday show. You can watch Aaron Schatz and I on Thursday here on the live stream. The house does a lot of the same things DVOA does. We're probably about to get to that when we talk about the Monday night game. Mm-hmm. But, we run with DVOA to the house. The house doesn't know this. And that, of course, the house has their in-house calculations that are very similar to DVOA. And it's yeah, we know that. We're here with you. Here with you. Try place a bet. Ha, ha, ha. We know what you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of Monday night, we'll dive right into that at the top today versus at the end of the show like we have in the past few weeks, kind of rushing through it. Yes. But we've got the Rams +2. That's right, +2 at San Francisco. 42.5 point total in this one. Still pretty low there. San Francisco offense was not very good last week. LA really hasn't, I don't think it's any surprise, hasn't looked as good as they looked last year. Beat the Cardinals just 20-12 last week. The San Francisco, that defense is second in yards allowed, third in points, number 3 in DVOA, I think, prior to this weekend's games or even Thursday's game. San Francisco is a home favorite, but our projected line with Football Outsiders actually had LA as a slight favorite. And that is something else you can get access to with a Football Outsiders subscription. FO Plus is access to all of our NFL picks, showing our projected lines versus the market lines. And then they're ranked by confidence for straight up as well as against the spread. So again, that's an FO Plus subscription. I sided with us, and I think LA is going to win this one. I think it stays under 42.5 points. A couple good defenses. Jimmy Garoppolo has not really looked very good since coming in. What are your thoughts on this? What's your take on the Monday Night Football, if at all? It's really a hard one.
I have no feel for these teams. I have no feel for the Rams whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And saw them get boat raced in the opener. Saw them grow flat against the Falcons and the Cardinals in games that they should have taken care of. Yep. See so little that doesn't involve Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Ramsey, and one or two other guys. So little from everything else that I don't know what their avenues to victory are besides go get them superstars. At the same time, I turn to the 49ers, and I've got a rain game, and I've got the punt fest from Sunday night, which feels like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Where I'm looking at Jimmy Garoppolo again, kind of running a version of the old Garoppolo offense, but it's not quite firing. And it's these teams do not look like the 49ers and Rams. On paper, they look like the 49ers and Rams from last year. On the field, they're like this weird, watered-down version of both of them. And I hate it. I like the under, but I hate the line, and I hate the matchup.
Yeah, and last year, you mentioned the Rams from last year and the 49ers. They were the last two teams standing in the NFC last year. But when you watch them, it does not look like that at all.
Right. It's just it's like, and again, it's so much similar personnel, and yet it doesn't seem like the results are anywhere near it. Now maybe we'll get some clarity tonight, but I don't want to bet on that clarity. But if you've got props.
We do have some props. Yeah, we got some good ones, I think. I said we've been hot the last couple of weeks. Went 5 for 5 on the Underdog pick'em last week on Monday night, so that was pretty awesome. The 3 I picked here. Starting with Matthew Stafford, under 250.5 passing yards. That's on Underdog, but also DraftKings and Caesars. A couple other places like FanDuel, I think, had him at like 246 or 247.5 passing yards. He's only top 250 once this year, and that was week 2 against Atlanta, and it was 272. San Francisco has been good against the pass. They're 4th overall. Haven't even allowed a 200-yard passer this year. To be fair, we had Geno Smith was one of those who lit it up yesterday. Was one of the best fantasy performers. But week 1, you mentioned, was Justin Fields in the rain. Last week, Russell Wilson, who had a good game this week, but that defense has been really good. And then Stafford only had 238 and 243 in 2 regular season games against them last year. He did have 337 in that playoff game, but that was a come from behind game where they were losing and threw the ball a lot. So to start, I like the Stafford under 250.5. Cooper Kupp is a popular one, but over 93.5 receiving yards at FanDuel and Caesars, coming off a season low 44 yards against Arizona. But against Arizona last year, that's been a tough matchup for them. He was below 65 yards in 2 of 3 against them last year, the Cardinals. So not super surprising. I mean, it's Cooper Kupp. You don't expect him to only have 44 yards. But last week was a little different. In 3 games against San Francisco last year, he went 11 for 122, 7 for 118 and a touchdown, 11, 142, and 2 touchdowns in the NFC Championship game. So he was over 100 yards the first 2 games. So I like him over that 93.5. Again, that's FanDuel and Caesars is a couple yards below. Some of the others were like 95.5, I think. Okay. And then a couple on the San Francisco side, Brandon Ayuk at 4.5 catches. This one is a little bit tougher. But I do like it. He's got 8 targets in each of the last 2 games, tied for most last week, and then led the team in week 2. The last 2 games against the Rams last year went 4 for 49 on 8 targets, 6 for 107. So Underdog, originally I took it for the pick'em tonight because it's 4 receptions even, and you just have to get to that 4. I think San Francisco's going to have to throw the ball a little bit more, especially the way LA has been against the run this year. They're 2nd against the run, I think, but only 23rd against the pass. They're also dead last defending passes to number 2 wide receivers, only 28th against number 1. So him and Debo could both have big games, but I think he's going to get enough targets in the receptions. The yardage, he doesn't get a ton of yardage a lot of times, so that one made me a little nervous. So I'll go with the receptions there.
Yeah, when I'm doing Garoppolo-related things, I want reception totals, not yardage totals, for obvious reasons. And I do get a little nervous when we talk about number 1, number 2 receivers for the Niners because of Debo being a slot, all-purpose guy. It's not necessarily like, oh, he's on the right boundary and he's going to get Ramsey or whatever. The Cooper Kupp is interesting because the 49ers generally are terrible at stopping deep passes. And I know they're in the bottom quartile in DVOA. I don't have the number in front of me. It's stopping deep passes this week. So what was that prop at? 96?
93.5 yards.
93.5. That's 1 or 2 deep balls and then the screen game that they do to get him involved, and you're there. So that one looks good. But normally I hate quarterback unders.
Me too.
You really sell, yeah, because it's like, now I'm rooting for punts. But the Stafford under is really speaking to me because even if Cooper Kupp feeds, I don't like the rest of that receiving core. I don't think Stafford likes the rest of that receiving core. And it's a very good chance that we could get a 10-125 from Kupp and then bean dip from everybody else and get that under. So I'd be leaning towards that Stafford under. That one and the actually all 3 of them sound good. I think the Stafford and the Kupp are the 2 ones that I'm really looking at.
Yeah, and just like last year, I mean, you just said it. Stafford had the 238, 243 in those 2 regular season games, and Kupp still had 122 and 118. Also over half of the production basically in those 2. So Kupp, is going to get it. One other one I did like, Jeff Wilson Jr., his reception line is at 2 on Underdog on the pick'em. On all the books, it was 2.5. He has at least 2 catches in every game so far. I think it's 2-3 or 2-3-3. So I think, you're just getting a couple dump downs. The Rams are really good defending passes to running backs. I think they were number 1 or number 2 when I looked it up this morning. But for him just to get 2 catches, again, the yardage was low, but I'll take, just a couple catches. He's got at least 2 of them in each game so far, and the rest of that backfield is pretty banged up. So that's another one that I'm putting in underdog as well. So might go with the 4, might try and find a 5th to get the maximum payout. I did the insurance on it last week. So that's something really cool they have where you can insure it. Instead of winning 20 times your money, you win 10 times your money if you get 4 out of 5. So it's hard to get 5, so I like to do the insurance a little bit, but may try and find a 5th one there. But yeah, that's hopefully we can keep rolling. Like we said, pretty much every week so far, I think we've hit our props on Monday.
This is my favorite part of the show, which is why we moved it to the front of the show. So I'm going to log out now and listen to you talk.
Right. I'll keep going and just talk and talk and talk. I'm good.
I'll drink my soda.
No, so we'll move on from Monday Night Football. And another big storyline from the weekend is the Steelers quarterbacks. Mitchell Trubisky came out. Kenny Pickett went in. Interestingly, Pickett did not have a pass hit the ground, but 3 of them were interceptions. I think it was 10 of 13, 10 completions, 3 completions to the other team. But hey, I mean, that's something not a lot of people can say. But really, it just the quarterback controversy starting already. Who should be quarterback for Pittsburgh? What do you think?
The quarterback controversy started at the draft.
Yep.
And I kind of got to see it. I was sitting next to a bunch of Steelers fans, and they're like the energy rises up from these guys when this happens. And of course, Pickett comes in, throws an interception, and they're like, "Well, that was Claypool's fault. It's double coverage. There's guys draped all over Claypool. It's Claypool's fault." It's okay, you like the rookie, that's fine. And then he had a couple. They were running the read option with him, and he was running the ball because Kenny Pickett's Lamar Jackson now. But he had
2 rushing touchdowns. I think I forgot if it was him or Wilson. Wilson caught the touchdown pass. Pickett had 2 rushing.
Yeah, he ran it and everything. The bottom line is, first of all, the young man's not ready yet. He's definitely not ready for the following 4 games of the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule: at the Bills, Buccaneers, at the Dolphins, at the Eagles. Okay.
Then he's got New Orleans after that.
There might not be a Kenny Pickett by the end of all of that. And the other portion of this is we're really seeing what degree this is the Matt Canada offense. Rollout purgatory. That's what I call this offense. It's rollout purgatory. You are stuck watching the play action boot, throw to the sideline that most teams run twice a game. You're seeing it 12 times a game. And while that's the case, I don't think it matters who the quarterback is. So I was on record last week, keep Trubisky in there until that murderer's row ends. Then you get to your bye. And it's all right, Pickett, season's lost or whatever, get in there, and you're not facing Von Miller or whatever, do your best. So that's where I land on it.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I had the same thing. Their schedule coming up is just tough. I mean, Pittsburgh, I don't think it's a hot take to say they're not winning the Super Bowl, probably not making the playoffs. They're dead last in the division right now, and they have just an 8% chance to make the playoffs. As of this morning, they had the 3rd biggest drop in playoff odds from their loss and other teams winning. Then the playoff odds, those are premium stat as well. Am I right, Mike?
I think the playoff odds are free, but I'm not sure.
Okay, either way, you can find those on Football Outsiders on the website under the fantasy and betting tab. If they are available, they're on there. If not, that's again something you can get with an FO Plus subscription. So really, if you can't tell yet or haven't been able to tell, there's a lot of really good stuff you get with an FO Plus subscription. So if you don't already have one, grab one, and you can get a lot of really useful content. People really spend a lot of time on that. Mike, you're one of those guys and does a great job. So a lot of good stuff there. But yeah, Pittsburgh not really going anywhere this year through no fault of Mike Tomlin. We know how great he is as a coach. When you don't have a quarterback, it's tough. And I really, to be honest, thought Trubisky would be a lot better than he's been. He really, I haven't watched a ton of their games, but doesn't have the rushing yard. I don't think he's topped 10 yards. I don't know if they've really designed any runs for him or to use him a lot. So it's that's kind of part of his game, or always has been, but hasn't really thrown the ball well. So it's kind of, there's really, you don't lose anything by switching to Pickett. I don't think, or you do a little bit just because he's a rookie, not been around a while. But like we said, it's not like you're taking a chance on taking a playoff team and dashing your hopes by going with Kenny Pickett. So, but you got to keep him alive and healthy. Like you said, how many times did we see the Browns put a quarterback back there on a terrible team behind a terrible line, just get destroyed, and they were never able to succeed, pretty much doomed from the start. So Yeah, I think, that you really can't go wrong either way from a success standpoint on
You can't,
what the rest of the season looks for. But health wise, it might not be super smart yet until you get out of this next stretch.
it's more like you can't go right. Like no matter what, this is
Yeah.
what it is. So the logic is we're going to develop the youngster. Then okay, well that makes sense. But there is that other concern overlaid with it that you develop him into a rickety mess because he was eaten by Shaq Barrett and Von Miller and
Yeah.
Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, and then gonna transition to a potentially another quarterback controversy. Maybe a team that potentially does have a Super Bowl run in them. We have James Pierre, who already says no, they cannot because they have a bottom 5 head coach. That is absolutely true. The things we've seen from McCarthy out there, but Dak's going to be coming back potentially this week or the next couple weeks, I think. But I don't know if anyone expected the Cowboys to win with Cooper Rush going. They had the Bengals first. I certainly thought the Bengals would get on track in week 2 and win. This past week against Washington, I think that was one when we did in our staff predictions. That was one of our questions that second week was what will their record be? I thought they would lose to Cincinnati. They have the Giants in Washington. I was like, I think they'll win one of those. But they're 3-0 with him now and sitting at 3-1. It's still going to be tough to win the division, but I mean, he's kept them in that race, which is something most people, I know I wrote them off after the Dak injury for even winning the division. What do you think? Do they have what it takes to make the playoffs there in Dallas with that combination of Cooper Rush until Dak comes back this week, next week, pretty here soon, I think, whenever that is?
Yeah, I think Dak's going to be back sooner than later at this point. And I've done a couple of radios, and apparently there's a Cooper Rush, Dak Prescott quarterback controversy trying to get whipped up. Like we're trying to turn the engine on a Cooper Rush bandwagon here because that's what we do in our industry here. We, especially with Cowboys fans, James, everyone else, y'all are fun to rile up. So we come up with this stuff, but I don't believe that there will ever be a serious Cooper Rush, Dak Prescott controversy. That was tried with Andy Dalton. There's just a reality check that comes in. Right now, Rush has played well, but it's starting to wind down. Like he played very, very well in the earlier games. On Sunday, it was pretty much pass interference, penalties, or bust, and some check down stuff. And that was like the Cooper Rush experience. The Cowboys are a pass rush with a team attached right now. Okay. Pass rush is absolutely fantastic. Stirring the drink for everything else they do, creating the opportunities for the offense. And that's what got them through these 3 games, obviously the Bengals game. When Dak returns, and Michael Gallup is back, and
he scored in his debut.
Scored and drew 2 pass interference penalties. So they're covering him. They're worried about him. It's not just CeeDee Lamb anymore. Jason Peters is starting to get into the game at guard, but like they're trying to sort their offensive line out a little bit. This could be a situation where they make a run. Now, James is right. McCarthy's a ninny, but if it's go get him, Micah, and that's half the battle coaching wise, then in a weak NFC, this is a team that can stay in the hunt. And yeah, they'll be in the Eagles' rear view for a while, but be there playoff time with good seeding, possibly sneak away with the division, if not be a top wildcard team.
Yeah, and they're sitting 3-1, tied with the Giants. They're second, both 3-1 behind the Eagles, of course. But Cowboys still almost 73.5% chance to make the playoffs. Over 50% in the wild card. The division, no surprise, is Philly, pretty high up there. But I mean, he's done a lot. He's done his job basically. What he was supposed to do is come in, keep them above water, and they've done better than that. But and to your point, they can make a run in the NFC, but it's going to be more on the defense. They've stayed good against the pass. Only average against the run. Bottom 8 of the league. They were 16th last year, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens if they're. I'm sure there's not a quarterback controversy kind of going back. Dak's going to be the starter when he comes back, but if he struggles, I mean, maybe more than in the past, they'll be calling for Cooper Rush back in. Who knows?
Oh my God. Anything is possible. The fact is there's no complete team except maybe the Eagles in the NFC right now. Packers, you lived through that journey yesterday.
Yeah.
They cannot stop the run at all. Those rookie receivers are an adventure every time. We're seeing the Buccaneers, all their problems with the running game, their defense seems like it's buckling a little bit. A team that does one thing unbelievably well, rush the passer, could stay in this conversation.
Yeah. And you mentioned with Green Bay that they were my pick for the Super Bowl. And part of that was I kind of compared it to what we saw with Tom Brady in his first year in Tampa, where they kind of got it going late after their bye. They had their bye the last possible week. Green Bay's got the same thing. And there are things that I see from Green Bay offensively. I'm like, they could really be something if the receivers can get it together. I really like Romeo Doubs. I liked him from the start. He's been good. He had the touchdown that he dropped there at the very end yesterday. But not as much of a panic level for Green Bay with me. Dallas, not really either. Denver Broncos, though, panic level could be pretty high there if you're a Broncos fan, especially with that loss of Javonte Williams. We said the defense has been good. They're still falling further behind the AFC West, though. And you mentioned that second half offense. They opened the second half with 4 straight punts. And then Russ ended up getting the rushing touchdown. It was their worst overall DVOA of the year. Their best offensive performance, which was still below average in DVOA, and their worst defensive performance of the year, but their only game that was below average. So it's like one side's doing well, the other side's not. They can't put it together. Mm-hmm. Are you panicking on the Broncos now if you weren't already?
I feel like by the time this team pulls it together, and I have a feeling they can pull it together, by the time they do it, it's going to be too late. That the front runners, that the Chiefs and the Bills and the Ravens and things like that, they're going to be moved on. They're going to be 2 or 3 games behind the chase. They're going to be in the wild card pool, and they're going to be in no position to do what they should be setting out to do, which was this was an idea like a quick fix Rams-style Super Bowl bid by this team. You mentioned the punts. I think it was 3 3-and-outs and like 1 4-and-out, and those were the 4 straight punts. Fourth quarter, their defense did buckle. And people don't like to talk about fatigue, but when you went 3-and-out, 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 and then I'm watching the Raiders trying to nurse a 2-point lead in the I formation with a fullback and Jacobs and the rookie, 8 yards, 9 yards, 10 yards. That's a gas defense, and that's a sign that nobody's playing complementary football. Defense has been trying to do too much, and it runs out of steam. Offense does nothing, and then it's the fourth quarter, and then it's time for Russ magic. Not a good formula. It's not a good formula for what the Broncos are trying to do.
Yeah, not at all. And the loss saw them have the second lowest drop in playoff odds. They're now below 50%, down just over 40%. The schedule really isn't that bad over the next month and a half for them. Like you said, if they can get it together, they do still have games against the Chargers, Jacksonville and London, the Raiders again, but they've got the Colts this week, the Jets, the Titans, and the Panthers still up until like Thanksgiving, I think. So there is an opportunity for them if they can get a win in the division with the Chargers or the Raiders and win those other games. But it's been tough so far to watch them. And at least Russell Wilson had a good fantasy performance for once for those of you who had Russell Wilson. The rushing touchdown definitely helps, but definitely not what we expected. Not necessarily not what we expected, not what a lot of people expected out there in the offseason and preseason with Russ coming in. How much of it do you think with Russell Wilson, and I've had friends, we've had this conversation, has to do, and I think it was you or maybe Vince on the coach ranking show I did with him mentioned it, you've got a lot of these teams where the quarterbacks and the starters aren't playing at all in the preseason. They don't see the field. Have you seen or noticed that really has as big of an impact maybe over the years or recently with Russ? Because you see other teams that come out and are still playing very well. But especially on a new team, new receivers, is that something you think that is having an effect and they will end up figuring it out? And they said if they can, but do you think that that's maybe a thing at all?
I ran the numbers a couple weeks ago, and it seems to be that there's something there. Mm-hmm. That teams that rested all their starters through the entire preseason, like sort of like aggressive resting,
right?
Do poorly in week 1, did poorly in week 1 this year, did poorly in week 1 last year. Then you go back further in the data, no preseason in 2020. Mm-hmm. And before that, it was unbelievably rare to rest everyone. Yep. No team rested everybody except like McVay. He was the only one. Now all the little McVays, they all do it, and it's catching on. So there's something to it, except that I cannot believe it's a week 4 phenomenon. I simply cannot. It's a week 1 phenomenon when you're seeing this team. Oh, they don't know the snap count. The guy's jumping off sides. The center exchange is weak. The plays are coming in late. That's all the stuff the Broncos did in week 1. That sounds like, boy, we would have figured this out if we had played a quarter in a preseason game to discover, we got to quicken this routine up. So I don't put any stock in it now. I'll put stock in again 2023 week 1 when we see teams like the Bengals and the Broncos come out and just lay an egg.
Yeah, so hopefully for Broncos fans that they're getting things together and they're making some progress. But yeah, it was a bad one given the Raiders their first win and falling even further behind the Chiefs in that division after they won as well. Moving on to the game that we just talked about a minute ago, we're talking about the Packers, the Patriots. What on earth are they going to do now? Mac Jones all week last week. It was, he's day by day. He shows up to practice Friday, and the report is, Mac Jones back at practice. But is he practicing? Obviously sat out with that high ankle sprain. Wouldn't expect him back any time within the next couple of weeks, but who knows? And Brian Hoyer gets hurt in the game, concussion, I believe. And then so you're on to Bailey Zappe, who was amazing in his last year in college, transferring to Western Kentucky after losing his senior season at Houston. Was it Houston Baptist, Houston Christian? I think I saw that this morning, but almost led them to a big win. But is that for real? Is he going to be good enough to do that on a weekly basis until Mac Jones comes back?
Did it look for real? You were watching that game. Did it look for real?
I don't know. I mean, I come from, obviously, a Kentucky hat, come from the games where I'm just nervous anytime a backup quarterback comes in because it's happened to Kentucky so many times they just get destroyed. But yeah, it didn't necessarily look great. The score obviously kept it close, but they almost pulled it out, but didn't.
The Packers just gave them the ball, gave them points off of turnovers, gave them the ball. Eventually, you get the play action open touchdown, but it was a lot of running and screens and standing there for 8 or 9 seconds and waiting for the sack to happen to him. And and again, this is not like a knock on Zappe. You shouldn't be out there at this point in his career. Right now, whenever you see like an X-Men movie, they show you Wolverine and he's like in the Weapon X project and they're putting the super soldier serum in him. That's what they're doing to Mac Jones right now. Okay. They're doing like weird experimental stuff to try and get him on the field. And that's what we saw on Friday. We're like, we're going to put him behind a fence and have him stand there and throw the ball. So you think he's okay. He has a high ankle sprain, people. It's going to be another 3 weeks or so, unless they do something unbelievably reckless. Useful title is right. It's the Zap Brannigan era. I mean, the Bailey Zappe era. And the good news for that, if there is any good news, is that you got a Lions, Browns, Bears, Jets run.
Ooh.
I mean, if it was Mac Jones out there healthy, I'd say that's 2-2, 3-1. You can find wins in there.
Yep.
There might be a win or so in there. I mean, the Lions, I don't even know I'm tired of talking about the Lions at this point. The Lions
put up a lot of points, but that's about it.
They cover. The Lions are going to cover, okay? That's beyond that. But the big issue here is, will the Patriots do something reckless with Mac Jones in their weird, desperate need to be competitive this season when it's clear that's not what they're destined to be?
Yeah, they're like we talked about, it's a kind of a two-horse race there with the Bills and Dolphins. Dolphins got their first loss, but not kind of similar with Pittsburgh, not expecting much from the Patriots. They're probably not going to be, or most likely not going to be, a playoff team. So just don't do anything, like you said, don't do anything reckless with your starter just to try and get him out there to get a couple extra wins. I mean, you don't want to look like you're not trying and hold him out when he can be out there playing, but you also don't want to risk his future. We saw it with Tua. Kind of that brings up obviously different situation, different injury, but don't want to put a guy out there before he's ready just so you can try and get a couple extra wins.
The signaling and messaging is so weird with this, with Belichick doing his secret, secret police, East Germany, Soviet bloc weird thing that he does with this. Let this player heal. Okay. Stop doing the same. Well, we'll see. We'll see if he practices. Well, I don't know. He looked pretty good walking through the facility. All this corny stuff out there. It's bad messaging. Because, I mean, I saw it. Carson Wentz did it young in his career. Robert Griffin did it early in his career, too. It's like, I got to hurry back for my team, or because my job's on the line, or because coach is mad. And you come rushing back to the adulation of the fans for what you're doing, and you're not right anymore, and you're not moving in the pocket anymore, and suddenly you're a sack machine. Suddenly you're jittery. That shouldn't be Mac Jones's future, because he has a high ankle sprain, and because Belichick is trying to prove some point.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys, as their ultimate competitors, they want to get out there. Yeah. They're winners. They want to play, but they can't. But we can talk about some guys who were winners this week, our biggest winners of the week this week. Mine, I'll start. We mentioned the Detroit. TJ Hawkinson had a monster game, albeit in a loss, but Seattle-Detroit turned into the shootout that we thought it could be with two not very good defenses.
Wait. You thought it was going to be that shootout? You're messing with me, right?
No, I really thought Detroit just puts up points, but has a terrible defense. So I really thought the Seahawks were going to be able to put up some points. And and this was going to be a shootout, and it turned into it. And Hockenson, again, winner of the week, went 8 catches, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, a career high in yards. And the biggest thing ended up being the 7th best fantasy score ever for a tight end this week for TJ Hockenson. So really big game. Jamal Williams also had a big game there with 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards on the ground, stepping in for DeAndre Swift. Got 2 bad teams that just put up with not great defenses that put up a ton of points. So it was a perfect recipe for success in the fantasy world this week in that game, and it was. So TJ Hockenson was a big one, and you, I believe, picked the guy who also had a big week in fantasy.
By the way, the ultimate Lions experience. What a big winner of a week they lost. I picked Austin Eckler, who I believe is the only healthy person left in the Chargers organization. I think that like their accountants and their lawyers are injured at this point. Austin Eckler had to go out there and had to do it by himself. I was subtly pulling up the statistics: 60 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 catches, 49 yards, 1 touchdown, 10 and 20-yard touchdowns early in the game. And then most critically, a touchdown at the end to ruin my backdoor cover with the Texans. But you're talking about an opportunity for a player to step up with so many people out. Eckler did that. And, that was a big statement win for the Chargers at this point, because I've kind of written the Chargers off my brain. Like, they're not going to recover from Bosa being hurt. They'll recover from the left tackle being hurt. Not going to recover from gimpy Herbert situation. Big win. Oh, the Houston run DVOA, it's putrid, CCX3. It's horrendous. I don't know if I can pull it up real quick, but it's comically horrendous.
Yeah, I thought I had it up already, but I didn't.
Yeah, we had it. So it's bad. Trust us. Go check out the site. It's miserable.
29th after this weekend.
29th after this weekend, yes. And
it looks like it's been updated for today. So they were pretty bad.
Well, they got the Bears game. It was just like, hey, Herbert, go ham on us. And then when you're not going ham, Fields will scramble. Trust us, bro.
Yeah, the rough game. And Austin Eckler, the touchdown too. It's funny. I was out watching these games in the early afternoon, and they had all the different games on, and they showed the graphic of Eckler compared to last year. And he racked up a ton of catches last week. Really hadn't been as good. And they showed his rushing and receiving yards per game average this year versus last year. Touchdowns, it was like 20 touchdowns last year, 0 this year. The very next play, he gets in the end zone and scores, and then I think scored on the very next drive as well. Right. So they put that up, and it was perfect timing for Eckler to get in the end zone for the first time this year.
Yeah.
Now we'll move on.
They're having trouble running the ball there. Having trouble running the ball there with the Chargers. They're really low in rushing DVOA, but Eckler coming around very positive.
Yeah, huge for them and for fantasy players out there as well. So move on from the winners of the week to the washouts of the week. I'll let you start this one since I went first on the last one, and you can kick it off.
Well, I haven't. It's been 4 weeks, and I haven't ripped Carson Wentz yet here in this space, and that's about to change because what I saw when I spooled the tape of this was absolutely shocking. First of all, he got called for intentional grounding twice. He's now been called for intentional grounding 3 times this season, which takes some doing for a quarterback. I think the all-time record is 1. That's not true. I'm making that up. But for that to happen, the Commanders have taken their offense down to just wide receiver screens and flat stuff. So to prevent the sack travesty that they dealt with against the Eagles and facing that Cowboys pass rush, everything was going into the flat. And it was pitiful. It was pitiful. The Commanders it was a 1-score game for most of that game. Going in before halftime, they had about a minute left. They're running the ball rather than they have no faith right now in their passing game. So they're taking the ball out of Wentz's hands in situations where any veteran starting quarterback, even like a hot rookie, get us down the field a little bit, get us down the field. So this is an offense that currently has given up the most sack yards in the NFL. And also is completing their completions are gaining less than 10 yards per completion. I believe it's 9.6, which is the second or third worst. So they get sacked and they try to throw deep, so they throw short and they don't get anything out of it. And it may be, it should have been Tyler Heineke time, frankly, in April, in May, in June. But I would not be surprised if that rumbling is starting for the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, not great for Carson Wentz there. Mine, we said last week we weren't going to use, or last week or the week before when we started this, we weren't going to use loser of the week because it sounds bad. But I'm saying it this week. Losers of the week, the Dolphins and Tua, the doctors down in Miami. I know the game was on Thursday, so it's been talked a lot about over the weekend. We saw the independent neurotrauma doctor get fired. Everyone involved messed up in that. Never should have been on the field. The disguising a clear concussion as a back injury, letting him go out 4 days later, and then the worst possible thing that could happen happened, getting another one. We know there are changes coming. It's a shame it had to happen that way, though, and it's really bad. And my wife is an athletic trainer and in orthopedics and works with a sports medicine doctor, and she said that they went in on Friday after that game. We're talking about, and the doctor that she works with just like, that's unbelievable that even happened. Like, people are getting fired, heads are going to roll. That's exactly what's happened, and it's really, you hate to see it. The first one, even concussions, they happen in sports, but to let him go out again 4 days later, when the concussion protocol is 5 days minimum, I think it's different from NFL, college, high school, and things like that. But to go back out again on Thursday and have this exact same thing happen basically is really bad. And I was asking her about it when the game was on. So we all saw the picture of two of his hands there. She was like, that's I think she called like second impact syndrome. She was, that's basically his brain hadn't recovered from the first concussion because it's been 4 damn days since the first one happened. So that's my, again, washout of the week, loser of the week. We'll say it this week because that was pretty bad. So hopefully Tua is okay. For everything we've heard, it sounds like nothing very like more serious, I guess. I would say it's already serious, but nothing. It turned out as well as it could have in a very bad situation. So
everything I learned from writing about concussions so often in the early 20 teens and talking to concussion experts is the variable is time. Yep. Given more time to recuperate, he can get back on the field and all, but the most dangerous and traumatizing thing is rapid fire. That's what causes the most permanent injury. So I hope the Dolphins do the right thing and they take their time a little bit and make sure Tua is fully ready to come back. I'm a little pessimistic because I heard the stories about them laughing and watching videos on phones on the plane, and I'm pessimistic. I just want a couple of point to you. Todd Singer did ask, were you able to see the Falcons game? Do you know what's up with the Kyle Pitts?
I didn't see a lot of that. I did see though that his it's weird there. And Tom talked about it last week. Tom Strachan on our daily fantasy and betting show on Thursday. And I saw a tweet today. His snap counts have fluctuated a ton. Like, they used him in the beginning. I think he was down to like 60% snap count yesterday, or 66, something like that, which is crazy for a guy like that who you drafted in the top 10 last year. Is as big as good as he is. They've got Drake London there now, but those are two guys you think they should utilize. But they're just I don't know what's going on. Why they're not utilizing him? Tom said on Thursday that it looked like last week he had a big game. He had, I think, 8 catches, 7 catches, something like that. Or actually, it might have only been 5, but he had the 5 targets. I think on like the very first drive, or on those what are typically scripted plays. And then he said after those scripted plays run out, it looks like Arthur Smith just kind of can't figure out what to do with him or how to get him the ball, which is interesting because Arthur Smith was there last year too. Granted, it was a different quarterback. They had Matt Ryan, but I think Mariota only completed 7 or 9 passes yesterday. Yes. So it was rough, but it's almost a mystery. I think it's hard to. The only thing I can really say is just that now it seems like he's not getting as many snaps, or that's what the number said for yesterday. So I don't know what to make of that when you've got a guy of that caliber.
The snaps thing is weird because he had 4 targets, and again, they didn't have the ball very much. So the Falcons didn't have the ball very much.
Yep.
I did see him in the previous games where, we're lining him up at fullback and having him run the wheel and doing some of these other things. Like, that's how I want to see Kyle Pitts used. I don't like that wide receiver storyline. I like the idea that he's going to be this Swiss Army knife all around the formation and all. But if you told me, he was blocking a lot, he was decoying a lot, that's one thing. The snap count thing is worrisome. It's something we don't know, worrisome, and it's worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, if you drafted Kyle Pitts too, there's probably not many better options out there just because of the way tight end is. So you kind of have to hold on to it and hope they get better. But at some point, it's one of those things too. You can't really, I don't know if you can really outright drop him until we get like, if we're 10 weeks into the season and he's still, is having 2 catches a game, just because he does have that talent and the potential to just go off. We saw it last year. But yeah, it just kind of have to. It's a wait and see thing with him, which really sucks to say, but that's the way it is with Kyle Pitts right now. It seems so. We'll wait and see what happens. But for now,
go grab that Taysom Hill tight end for the Saints. Go out and grab him.
So, see, he'll probably give you even more. You never know when it's going to come, but
when it comes, it's going to be good.
Yeah. So we'll move on now to our best and worst coaching decisions of the week. Start with our best coaching decisions. I've got two of them this week. I was writing about one, and then there was another one that I saw that I didn't want to leave out. The first one is the big topic from the week, and that's John Harbaugh choosing to go for it. 4th and goal at the 2, tied at 20 with 4:15 left in the game. It was actually not as high in win probability as I thought it would be. It was 2.7% versus kicking the field goal. Buffalo's prior 4 drives were punt, touchdown for 80 yards, field goal 51 yards, touchdown 76 yards. They'd been moving the ball in that second half. A 3-point lead still allows Buffalo to win with a touchdown. The touchdown makes them have to tie it. Failure typically ends up with the ball at the 2-yard line. And Aaron actually had tweeted or quote tweeted the comments from Harbaugh and made this point. Like 99 times out of 100, you fail and the Buffalo starts at like the 2 or something like that. But it was an interception, so it gave Buffalo the ball at the 20. So that made it a little bit worse. But the decision there, I think, to go for it is 100% the right decision. When you've got Josh, maybe not 100%, but you've got Josh Allen on the other side, moving the ball well, like a touchdown. They could score a touchdown. You never see the ball again with 4 minutes left. I understand wanting to take the lead, but it's one of those kind of like you're taking a temporary lead that probably isn't gonna stick. I think I have even if they kicked the field goal, they would have only been at, what was that number? I think they were still only at like 50-something% chance to win by kicking the field goal. So it's not like they go up to 70% to win that game. It's or they're at 61 if they kick the field goal. So it's not like you're in the 80s and 90s percent wise. But I like the decision to go for it because try and make them score a touchdown to force overtime instead of touchdown to beat you and then a field goal to force overtime in that situation. What did you think about that?
Hated it. I mean, I get the numbers, and it's year 2 of explaining why the Ravens made the right choice at the goal line, because we did this about 40 times last year. Yep. And I get it. The statistics are accurate. 3rd string left tackle, rainy game. Okay. And we do have the hindsight of knowing that the Bills did just charge right down the field and could have scored a touchdown at the end, almost certainly if they did. Just all of those things combined, and the usual, hey, Hall of Fame kicker, so we don't have to worry about that element of things.
Right.
And I don't know if the 2% probability is worth all of the other factors that were going into play in that game. And also just the fact that this Ravens team does seem to have a problem converting at the goal line. They had a problem converting at the goal line against the Dolphins in week 2. So they're going to say like gamblers paradox their way out of this and say, well, one of these times probability is going to be right. Or there's something systemic going wrong with the way you handle your goal line situations, which is a possibility. So I don't obviously, if you read walkthrough, I don't necessarily go to battle about it, but I didn't love the call.
Yeah, 100 agree. It was closer. It said 2.7%. I think I said so. Option to go either way, but Harbaugh, we've seen him be aggressive, so not super surprising there. The other one, another guy we've seen be aggressive, and I wanted to give him the credit here too, Brandon Staley, because he gets crushed when it fails. But I feel like, and a lot of these coaches too, they don't always get the credit when it works unless it's a super highly controversial decision. Like if Buffalo or Baltimore would have scored a touchdown, he would have gotten all the credit there. But the Texans made a furious comeback in this one to cut it 27-24. I think they went touchdown, field goal. Chargers had 4th, and I saw it as 4th and 1 in one place, 4th and 2 in another place. But at their own 45, 5:23 left in the 4th quarter. They went for it, which was 3.8% higher win probability by choosing to go for it. And they converted, went on to score the touchdown to take a 10-point lead, and the rest is history. They win the game. And in that situation, if you fail, Houston's already close to the tying field goal range. I think Fairbairn missed a kick yesterday, but he's been down a little bit, but we know he is a decent, I guess, NFL kicker for which isn't necessarily great, but still they need 20 yards to get into a 40-ish yard field goal range, which isn't that difficult for most kickers. But they're also in position to get a game-winning touchdown. And even if they fail, if they do, I think the Chargers still had 2 or 3 timeouts there. 5 minutes left. You can get a chance to get the ball back. If you punt the ball away, they go down and score a touchdown. You're most likely not going to have any time there. So I really like that decision, even without Rashawn Slater, who they lost last week, tackle. So choosing to go for it, converting, it paid off. And I think I like the decision there from Brandon Staley, which wouldn't really expect anything less from him, it seems like.
Right. Although, he was weird early in the year. He wasn't going for those 4th and shorts. And now I'm guessing he's being more true to form. And again, that ruined my backdoor cover with the Texans. So I'm not thrilled about it. But that's a sign that it might have been the right call.
Absolutely. So what did you have as your best coaching decision this week?
Had a couple of Eagles coaching decisions near the goal line. First of which was another 4th down, I believe at the 3-yard line. They run a play. Jalen Hurts, it's officially listed as a scramble. I think it was somewhere between a scramble and first read and go type quarterback draw. He gets it into the end zone for the touchdown. Very strong play. Needed that at a time in the game. This was earlier in the game when the Jaguars were dominating to make sure that it doesn't become 14-3, 14-6, 14-10, those kind of things. Yep. That was a good call. Later, they get to the 12-yard line. Eagles get to the 12-yard line, and it's 4th and 1, and they run a quarterback sneak. Just a really standard sneak with Hurts. Eagles fans will remember Dallas Goedert's like pushing Hurts from behind, like pushing him in like some sort of like 1920s high school game. 2 opportunities there, again, against a very feisty opponent that was leading, was very competitive at that point, and it helps the Eagles dictate on the ground. Good for probability, gets that game tied up and helps spur the Eagles comeback.
Yeah, and that got down, I mentioned at the top, got down big in that one, 14-0. It was looking a little rough for them, but the 2 decisions that helped them come back and win that game and remain, I think, the last undefeated team. Is that right?
Yes, the last undefeated team.
That was them in Miami. Yep. So good for Sirianni, who actually finished very highly in our coach rankings last year as well as a rookie head coach. So keeping that moving forward. Moving on to our worst coaching decisions. I'll let you take this one first since I went first on the last one. Try and switch it up a little bit.
Okay. Tennessee Titans. Well, I lost my train of thought there. Tennessee Titans, late in the game, Treylon Burks gets injured, and he stays in the game. Very weird sequence of events in which he's limping. I believe it was a short yardage situation. He's limping up to the line of scrimmage, gets up to the line of scrimmage, and they actually run a play with what looks like a very significantly injured Treylon Burks in the game. They have to take Burks out on the cart a couple of minutes later. And earlier in the game, there was another situation in which the Titans mismatched the clock, and they had to run their kick unit out there, and the backup guard trips over the holder, and it's this cluster hump, and they don't get the kick off in time. And there's these weird fit and finish errors that I don't associate with a Vrabel team. Like, if Burks is hurt, he should know to go to the ground. He's an NFL player, college player, high school player. If you're hurt, go to the ground. You're going to get the clock stoppage so you can get somebody in who can help on the play. The idea that Vrabel doesn't spot this, none of his coaches spot this and do something to kill that play so Burks doesn't get clocked. Weird things like that. Right now, the Titans are 2-2. That's fine. They beat a horrendous Colts team, whatever. They're running out of guys. They can't risk further injuring their guys. They also can't leave 3 points on the table by making dumb things on field goal decisions. And that was it's just a sign that things aren't exactly the way they're supposed to be in Tennessee.
Yeah, the one where he tripped was funny. I actually didn't see that yesterday. I saw it this morning on Good Morning Football, and they also showed the guy, Garrett Bowles for the Broncos, on the Melvin Gordon fumble that was returned. Just like dive, puts his arms out, and then as his feet leaves the ground, pulls like his arms back in, where he had no chance to get him, but didn't even fully stretch his arms out to try. Right. So there were some funny ones on there today.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the one on the Titans field goal was funny, but really disappointing if you're a Titans fan in that situation. Mine worst decision is a play call, again, coming from the Edge Sports background. This is one that's kind of can be a little controversial, but I've definitely looked at these things a lot differently, having worked over here for the last few years now. This was overtime of the Green Bay New England game. New England on the second possession, so they can get a field goal to win it. 4th and 5 at the Green Bay 46, choose to punt. This was actually our biggest error of the week. You're punting back to Rodgers, only needing a field goal. Yeah. Even with your third string quarterback, Bailey Zappe, you have to go for it there. Give yourself a chance to convert that and then get on to make a field goal or keep going down to get a touchdown, something. But choosing to punt there and just give the ball back. And we saw what Rodgers did. It was a great drive at the end of the game to get them down to basically the 5-yard line. Rodgers isn't necessarily, I don't think, known as a Brady or a Mahomes where you kind of expect him to always make that drive. We saw it in the game against the 49ers last year. Sometimes does struggle in those clutch situations. But this is one you're just giving it right back to him, letting him go. And I was happy with it as a Packers fan, but disappointed from what I do and looking at it from our point of view.
Yeah, that's the NHL team in the 80s playing for the tie and to get the point. And that's kind of what it's almost what was going through in Belichick's mind. And you're right. I mean, I would pause because, oh my God, it is my third string quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're playing to win, you got this far. What do you have in the playbook? Do you have a halfback pass? Do you have razzle dazzle? Do you have, anything? The wide receiver screen's a terrible play, but if that's what you think you're going to do to go with this, rather die with your boots on, take that opportunity. And, the Patriots failed to do it.
Yeah, the Packers had one too. That was I think our second or third, but it was definitely even more kind of a controversial one where it was at the end of the game, like 2 minutes left. They had 4th and 8 at the New England 40 and took a delay game and punted. And it was, a 58-yard field goal. That's Crosby's career long. That was all the way back in like 2013 or something. He's made a couple 57-yarders over the years since then, but it's a long field goal for him. But even, going for it, you punt the ball, you gain 30 yards. It's really not a ton. If you give them the ball back at their own 40, you still have, Bailey Zappe at quarterback. And it's a Patriots team who isn't really that good. So that was one, but it's a 4th and 8. It's a little bit tougher. But it was still one of our top of our worst decisions as well.
Yeah. And I don't hate the idea of taking the third string quarterback and trying to put him at the 4-yard line.
Exactly. Yeah. I wasn't
so a little bit of logic for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been okay if they went for it, especially if they got it. But yeah, I was one when I saw that on our numbers, I was surprised it was a little bit higher. It was as high as it was. Yeah. But knowing how the model works and how good it is, I'm like that's not surprising that it's on here though. So a couple of them, but Green Bay got the win. Belichick, not surprising to see him go a little bit more conservative, especially with a third string quarterback there. But that is it for the worst coaching decisions, and that also does it for our recap show of week 4. Before we log off, just again, want to remind you to go on to footballoutsiders.com/subscribe, sign up for FO Plus. You can get access to all of the stats a day early, all the advanced statistics. You get access to premium stats and articles, NFL picks every week, both against the spread and straight up. A lot of good stuff, fantasy rankings as well. Don't forget about our Discord channel as well, that we are on live during the games tonight on Thursday and then as well on Sundays. And then don't forget about that Underdog promo. Get yourself a free $100 using promo code OUTSIDERS at underdogfantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Mike, pleasure as always. We will see you next week.
Yes, absolutely. Go Cooper Kupp. Don't go Matthew Stafford. See everybody next week.